introduce myself in a moment once we have a few more folks join. And I'm in Central Virginia, so it's a little bit warm right now here. So I'm looking at all of my napping critters around me. So we'll see. Often I have cats or dogs who are willing to demo. So we might get some live demoing today. Hi, Deirdre. New to buttons, just starting. Gabby is my learner. Welcome. 4-year-old sassy male toy poodle. Awesome. Gabby is a good name for a chatty pet too. So hopefully a sign of many things to come. Although I found that my border collie, Adora, who I got started with 4.5 years ago, she began very vocally chatty and remains vocal, though uses her buttons a ton too. She just doesn't yell at me quite as persistently as she used to, which I think is great. And if anyone is just joining us, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. The more info I have about you and your learners, your household, where you're at in this journey, the more I can tailor today to what you all need. I can talk about buttons all day. I love talking about buttons, which is why we're here. I'll introduce myself in just a moment. Maya, welcome to you, and Pepper, 7-year-old Pomsky. Partner and I've been watching pups use buttons on Instagram for a couple years. A friend of ours got us the tester pack as a gift. Awesome. Excited to get our pup communicating soon. She has 2 buttons out right now. She rarely initiates, but target training is going well. Awesome. Very good to know. So we'll talk about kind of expectations, making sure that you are on track, which sounds like from your description so far, but maybe how we can keep building that motivation for Pepper individually here too. And as you all continue to introduce yourselves, a bit of housekeeping. We do recommend using Chrome or Safari today. If you're on another platform and it's working, great. But if you have any trouble with sound, the visuals, once I play video, just hopping back in a different browser tends to resolve a lot of it. But if not, we have Calvin, one of our wonderful community coordinators from FluentPet here, and he's our guide communicator, our coordinator as well, and a great communicator with his cat, Jason. So we've got him on the call, and we can help out if you have any technical difficulties. And then this will be recorded, so I'll show you where you can find that link, and be on the lookout for a follow-up as well. Oh, Katie says all done. So as you all keep introducing yourselves, apologies for the scooching here. Katie is saying all done here. So Katie is my 1-year-old cat who is mostly blind. She's got a lot of scarring from when she was a kitten. They thought she was going to lose her eyes, or at least one of them, but managed to keep them, just enough scarring that she doesn't really use vision as her primary sense. But she can still use the buttons, no problem. And my cat who I got started with, all done, says Katie, do you want some pets? So I'm pressing pets just to model that, but I'm talking to her as well. Yeah, my first cat who I got into the buttons with was fully blind and had no problem using the buttons at all. So that's why I'm excited to just tailor this to each individual learner, what they need, what they're interested in. So Katie has been with me since May. She started using buttons probably about end of May, beginning of June. How sweet girl. And her favorite thing to talk about is food. She's very, very food motivated. And so we've been working on expanding what she has access to in that regard. And you can see her sniffing around her board. A lot of our low vision learners, and even our fully sighted learners, they will use scent to help navigate and to find their way around the board. Dogs and cats, even again, the sighted ones, they're more geared towards a distance movement with their vision. Up close is tough. So that's where we can be smart about setting up the board using either contrast, or when we're first starting off, I don't like to do more than 1 or 2 buttons per hex tile, even for small learners. Hi, Katie. Look at you. That's so silly. I have textures on some of the buttons just to help soak up the scent, to make it even easier for her to navigate that way, and for different texture changes and contrasts for her being low vision. I have not seen her nom on the hook part of the Velcro before. Oh, do you want more pets? So that's where if you see them tap it, you can press it for them and then follow through. or see if they want to follow through. She's grooming herself instead. But I have my hand out at the ready, which even though she might not be able to see it, she's still very aware of all that. And we'll talk about modeling in a little bit in more detail, but modeling is just talking to them all the time, pressing the buttons before something happens. And even if you are, or your learner is on the other side of the room while you're pressing and modeling, or maybe they're not even in the room, they're still hearing it. They're still making connections between the buttons and something happening. And there's still an awareness there. Again, I had a fully blind cat who never physically saw me press the buttons, but still was able to make those connections. So just pressing and then you following through, even if the learner is like, I don't know, if you're about to go outside, you can press outside and go out. Often they'll want to join you then. Hi, Katie. Who's Katie Cat one? All right. And we'll see. I'm sure she will continue chatting here. Oh, thank you, Calvin. And Irma, great to have you. We have Irma from FluentPet as well today, who will be helping out in the chat as well. And if anybody has trouble, technical difficulties, Irma will be all over it for you. And we'll be linking chats throughout, or links throughout in the chat as well. Betty, welcome to you and your 3 husky mixes, all around 6 years old. First time trying buttons. They all have very different personalities and communicate with us in different ways. Great info. And so for you with a multi-learner household, similar to me with the 2 cats and 2 dogs, I know different species, but again, tailor it to what they're interested in. And maybe you have separate boards, or maybe, a main area that everybody shares, and then individual groupings of their particular interests. You can always play around with it, have fun with it, and adjust all of that as you go. All right, so Katie looks like she is interested in grooming herself. So I'm going to reshare my screen. And let me finish introducing myself. So I'm Morgan Krug. I'm a certified dog behavior consultant. I've been working with animals professionally for going on 18 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about. And I've already introduced a lot of my learners to you all, or talked about Jasper, my inspiration for working with visually impaired cats. But I've had my border collie at it for 4.5 years now. And I have my other cat, Bernie, who is one-eyed guy, but can still use the buttons no problem as well. And let's see. So on the agenda today are our introductions, which we're doing right now. Then we'll chat through the keys to button teaching, modeling, which we started to talk about, first words, and then target training as well. This is an interactive discussion, so feel free to ask questions throughout in the chat. And the chat's a little bit easier so that I can keep track of your questions and we can talk about it during the most relevant portion. But if anything's pressing, you have follow-ups, please don't hesitate to let us know. You can always raise your hand as well. And then I'll share additional resources, and then we'll have time for more Q&A. And there's my little one-eyed guy, Bernie. So a little bit more about us while I fulfill Katie's requests here. While Alexander Rossi and Christina Hunger were using buttons previously with their learners, FluentPet is the original button teaching system. And our mission is to figure out how to teach dogs, cats, and the other animals we share this planet with how to talk, or an approximation of it. And to pull this off, we know it's going to take a village, a community of people working together to figure out the best teaching tips and tricks and figure out just how far all this can go. So that's where you all come in. And for those of you wondering, how far can all of this go? I think this video really helps paint a picture of what's possible, and you'll probably recognize Alexis and Bunny.
The foundation for getting started with buttons is just a desire to connect. I can't remember the exact order, but I think she pressed stranger mad. And I was like, what does that mean? And then ouch paw. And she came over to me and she put her left paw in my hand. And I was like, okay. And I looked between her toes and she had a foxtail stuck between her toes.
This was the stranger in her paw. She's got a mat between her toes.
And it's not just Bunny who can do these amazing things. I mentioned my blind cat, Jasper. After she had an eye procedure, she was able to request medication multiple times with eyes and help, and let me know that she wanted that relief. It's not all medical related either. There's lots of fun examples. One of my favorite early ones was with Scout, a Catahoula mix, who would repeatedly combine water and bone. Took us a little while to figure out what she wanted, but it was ice cubes. So she got an ice cube button and was able to advocate for herself in that way. So it really is amazing how creative they can be, even with a limited vocabulary. All right, so how do we get started? I know it sounds like y'all are in some at the very beginning, some a little bit further in. But to get started, our first step is just modeling. Talk to them. Do it verbally before you have your buttons set up. While you're trying to narrow down and decide buttons, you can always be verbally narrating to them. Excuse me. Sorry, y'all, allergies. Sorry, y'all. And of course, Bernie here's a toy, and he has decided to come out and play. So an example of verbal modeling for them would be saying play, pulling out the toy, asking them to engage that way, pressing the play button, continuing to engage that way. And I have a video for you with Kelly and her learner Delmer that's going to show the first 24 hours that they had buttons in their household. So you're going to see lots and lots of repetition, talking to him, though that part's not included, pressing the button and following through, following these 3 simple steps that we have on screen.
Puzzle. Outside. 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 Puzzle. Outside. Pets. Puzzle. Outside. Outside. Pets. Puzzle. Puzzle.
Yes. Puzzle. Want puzzle?
Puzzle. Puzzle. Outside. 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 Puzzle. Outside. Puzzle. Outside. Outside. Outside.
And it's a lot of repetition at first while we're helping them understand that the buttons have a consistent outcome each and every time. And Irma, thank you for adding their Instagram to the chat there. So we're talking to them. We're keeping track of how we're talking to them. We're trying to be as consistent as possible. We're pressing the button, and then we're following through. So lots and lots of repetition. This is where if you can choose things that you can say yes to more easily, that will help you capture their excitement, their enthusiasm, and teach them that this is a fun new way that they have to interact and engage with us. And I have a note at the bottom too that all learners are going to take a different amount of time before pressing. The speed at which they pick this up has no bearing on their long-term success. So keep at it, keep modeling consistently with the 2, 3 buttons, however many you have set up, all throughout the day or whenever you're around. Just hanging near the board can be helpful. Or while it's small, you can pick up the board and move it around. Yeah, and so Maya says, does that mean you do it every time you do the action naturally, or that you would do these things more often than normal until they start pressing more? Great question. For me, the answer is both. I try to pick concepts that I can model naturally really easily, just whenever I'm home and around. That way I'm set up for success and they're set up for success, but there's definitely buttons that I put down that I follow through with more in the intention of motivating them to use said button. Yeah, so excellent question. So both, but if you can do it so it's natural for you, then you're a bit more set up for success. Another method, in addition to modeling throughout the day, doing the naturalistic modeling, is rapid modeling. So you can practice pressing the button and then having what the button says appear immediately after and pairing it time and time again. So it can be with something like play, which you can see is very motivating for my kittens, but for a lot of dogs and for some cats as well, food might be the most motivating. So here's Kelly with a different learner, Nushka, rapidly pairing snack with food appearing. So another thing that I love with this is I was actually pushing the food button, the snack button, with a piece of the food, and then throwing it a little bit away from the board. The idea there, or from the button, the idea there is that it's getting the smell on the button. It's really driving home that the button equals the food appearing, that being pressed, hearing that sound. And then by putting the food a little bit away, Nushka's then turning back to indicate she wants to keep going. She's still interested and is orienting back to the button, practicing locating herself close to that, pressing it, following through again. So that can be 30 seconds, 60 seconds, just really short sessions of rapid modeling. And Irma, thank you so much for adding that link. Back in February, we had a food modeling challenge where we encourage people to record themselves doing this. And so we've got lots of examples with folks and their learners at that link there. So just options that you can choose. And again, you can rapidly pair or rapidly model a button and outcome for anything that's relevant. Maybe pets is super motivating to your learner. You can press pets and then, give them some loving and keep pairing those together. So we've started to touch on this a little bit, but we can try to set ourselves up for success as much as possible by choosing first buttons and words that are motivating and meaningful to your individual learner, easy and convenient for you to model immediately to them, and concrete or actionable. Because the soundboard itself is an abstract tool that they're learning how to use, the more easy to understand, to follow through, to show them the meaning of the button press, the easier it is for them to get these initial buttons, the faster we can then move on to our more abstract concepts. But we want to lay that really strong foundation first, starting with easy to understand buttons, and then we can get more complicated. Oh, Betty, thank you for letting us know. We'll get that fixed. And so starting with 2 or 3 buttons, more than one, to help them understand that different buttons mean different things. And if you've already started with more than 3, I'm not here to tell you you're doing anything wrong. We've had plenty of folks start with more and have success. Some learners can get frustrated and overwhelmed. So that's why we find that overall, general best practice is that 2 or 3 buttons. But as we're going through and chatting about all of these things today, know that, again, I'm not here to tell you you're doing anything wrong. I'm not here to correct you. I'm here to figure out what we can do to help your learners be successful and help you feel like you can be successful with the buttons with your learners. So if at any point I say something and you're like, that doesn't sound reasonable or relevant for us, no worries, let us know and we can figure out what will work instead. Or if you've had success another way, great, let us know. I love hearing that information. That's all relevant and helpful for me. All right, so examples of starting buttons. You can do more general, something like play, or you can do a specific toy. I mentioned for my kittens, I started with more general buttons. So eat, pets, and play were the 3 that I began with for them. But for my border collie, Adora, we began with ball because ball is life for her. Incredibly, incredibly motivating. So she has a general play button that she uses no problem, but we started with that specific one. So if you start general, you can always get specific. So my cat, Katie, started with the general eat. We now have wet food, kibble, pumpkin, because she loves to request pumpkin as a meal topper. I don't know if you heard her pressing that earlier. Water, just lots of different specific options in addition to that general eat. So we have the very, very great question here, and often a concern that folks have. If you teach something like treat or snack, you kind of set up a situation in which you will be captive to giving your pet treats a million times a day. It might feel like that at first, but what we find is that the learners who are that food motivated, they're going to figure out how to use their buttons to ask for food somehow anyway, or just to get your attention, or to ask for pets, get you over to them and then be like, oh, I'm going to go to the treat cabinet now that you're petting me, or something like that. So what we find is that it's easiest to just give them a button for it specifically. For me, that's why I did a general eat, so that I could model it while I'm eating. It doesn't always mean they get to eat. I can model it while anybody in the household is eating. It can be for specific meals. It can be for different types of meals. It can be for snacks, for training session. It can be for filling a puzzle or a frozen Kong or something that takes them longer to work through, so that you're not just being a vending machine or a Pez dispenser and just giving them a treat every single time they press it. And I've even worked with diminishing returns as well, where if I've had somebody who's just insistent on continuing to press, I'll even break a kibble in half and be like, all right, you can just have half a kibble, sure. But typically what we find is once they realize that we're going to say yes so much to what it is that they want, it becomes less valuable. It it kind of diminishes the level of motivation because we can always say yes. So think about if you knew that every single time you went and played the slot machines, you'd win the jackpot. every single time you would get exactly what you wanted. Eventually you'd be like, okay, I've got a few million, like I'm kind of hungry, I need to go to the bathroom, like let me go do those things. And if you know that that slot machine will be open, you can press it, or you can, win another jackpot as soon as you go back to it, you might find other things that you want to do instead. And so the idea there is it becomes less valuable the more available it is for them. And we have other things that we can say yes to throughout as well. Hopefully that's helpful for thinking about it. And don't get me wrong, I definitely get multiple food requests throughout the day. But for my one cat, Katie, she prefers 5 or 6 small meals a day. That's what works out great for her. And she can tell me when she wants pumpkin to help settle her stomach or to snack on. Whereas Bernie, my other guy, less food motivated, he's maybe pressing food once a day max. He's happy to finish whatever leftovers are out on the counter. There's always something available, but yeah, and he's much more motivated by activity, adventures. But remember to be setting yourselves up for success. So I started with play for Bernie, even though he loves outside, because it's at least an hour commitment every time we go out. At least it's getting even longer these days. But gearing him up, supervising him, all of that is a lot. That's not easy or convenient for me to say yes to, even though it's incredibly motivating to him. So I didn't start with that button so that I would be set up for success and that I would have other things that were easier to say yes to. Yeah, and Maya said in the example where you use eat to mean anyone eats, how long would you wait until you introduce multiple meanings for a button? Will it confuse my dog if I start there instead of starting it with just pressing when I feed her? So typically we find that generalizing things like that can work pretty well. And especially if maybe you snack on something that both of you can eat, depending on what you enjoy eating. I'm vegetarian, so I don't eat like the meat, but sometimes I'll be like, oh, mom, eat, and I'll eat a piece of a cheese stick and then practice, Bernie eat, Katie eat, Ash eat, Adora eat, and kind of practice what Jennifer, one of our guides, calls a tea party. So you're not only practicing their names as you're narrating that, but also the taking turns, the taking food, all of that as well. So typically we don't find that kind of generalization that is a bit more straightforward and actionable confuses them. But if you do notice them seeming frustrated or overwhelmed, you can always just focus on them. But this is where I just love to be narrating all the time to them and narrating what we're doing. That can be really helpful too. Yeah, excellent questions. Give me 1 second. All right, thanks, y'all. I appreciate your patience. Yeah, the tree pollen is going nuts out there, and I just came in from outside, in part because Bernie wanted such a long walk that he had to be retrieved for the remainder of it today. And Calvin added, we started with a general eat and later on added kibble and wet food to be more specific, but found that the general concept worked better for us in the beginning. Yeah. Yeah. And so similar, I like to start for my non-cats with a general outside. So that then once we're out there, we can play, we can walk, they can potty. I'm able to narrate different things that they're doing all under that general umbrella of the outside. Excellent questions. And so to summarize, it can be 2 or 3 buttons, 2 or 3 hex styles, just however many you have, and then go. Keep it simple. Ideally, again, no more than 2 buttons per hex style, even for the small guys, just so that they're not overwhelmed and can differentiate a little bit easier between them. You can always adjust it. This is just for starting off. Again, you can carry the board with you until you decide where it's going to live. But when you're thinking about where the board should live, somewhere centrally located, easy for you to model, easy for your learner to get to and to watch you while you're pressing. A lot of them like to watch us while they're pressing and know that we're about to respond. And then, so to kind of follow up on your very valid question about what happens if they're asking all the time. Sometimes they might not be satiated, or they just fixate on a button, or they just realize they've got the power, they've got the agency to control the outcomes in their environment. Some of them are like, woohoo, let's make that monkey dance. Nothing wrong with that. Try to still say yes as much as you can, but you might be ready for some early abstract concepts in that case. So again, the more ways to say yes to them, to reduce their frustration, to continue to build value and motivation for the board, the better. So that's where I'll sometimes add, in addition to eat, like a specific puzzle button, or if they really want to be going outside and adventuring, maybe adding like a window button for my cats so that I can open up a window for them to look out, or catio. Try to think about easier to say yes to things that you can add to the board, just to, again, continue to build value and reduce frustration. But you also are probably ready for some early abstract concepts. So get them to be independently pressing first. And you can always be practicing narration, even if you haven't put these on the board yet. But early abstract concepts that we recommend typically are things like more and all done, yes and no, now and later, something along that line. Give me 1 second again, y'all. So these are pairs that are contrasting to one another. The idea here is that you can model them in opposition, in contrast. So when you think about, yes, more outside now, you're taking action, you're going out. Yes, more food now, more as you're adding food. Now as it's happening, yes, as you're following through. That's a lot easier for them to understand these more abstract concepts compared to, no, outside all done. You can go later. And then nothing happens. That's a lot tougher for them. So that's why, if you can, be modeling these in opposition to one another. And so just picking one pair to start off when you're ready for the abstract concepts on your board, and then paying attention to what you're modeling. And yeah, have fun with it, depending on what they're interested in. Emotions are another good abstract concept that you can be narrating to them. And when you see them excited, when you see them, happy, as something like a positive emotion button. And then the contrast to that would be a negative emotion button. Maybe it's mad, maybe it's sad, frustrated, something along those lines. And if you wait a little while before adding now and later, maybe you add now, soon, and later all at the same time. So you can get a little bit more complex the more advanced they are with their buttons, and even household member names. I just wound up adding all of our household member names pretty much at the same time once we got to the names aspect. And a lot of them are very motivated to either press your name, whether it's your first name or mom or dad, however you want to be referred to as. And they enjoy pressing their name. Some enjoy advocating for other learners in the household. So that can be a really fun one. You can practice again with that tea party. So let us know if you have follow-up questions on any of that. And then we're going to dive into kind of some target training in just a moment. Hi, Bernie. All right, so target training. If you've been modeling diligently for your learners, if you have chosen motivating buttons, a lot of times they are going to be happy to mimic you, at least experiment a little bit, but not always. Sometimes they need help connecting the dots, working on their precision, their accuracy, and that's where target training can come in. So we've got a few different links that Irma helpfully put in the chat for us. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick just so that I can give you a better demo here. We'll see if Bernie comes over. So sometimes it's easiest to just pop the button right out of the hex tile and cue them to press it either in the palm of your hand, cue them to give you a high five. And then if it's something like play, then you can immediately follow through. Bernie's like, what? I was just grooming myself, but now I see stuff to play with. If they have a nose touch and they're more inclined to nose press, great. Whatever style of pressing they want to do, as long as they're not frustrated, you can understand them, have at it. So Bernie is primarily a shoulder presser. So that's part of why he's laying on the board as well, because all he has to do is roll right over and he's right by the play button. I also have multiple play buttons, hence why I have one in my hand and he's next to one. Because I have 4 learners sharing a board and play is so valuable, I've got built-in redundancies to help reduce competition. So you can always get creative about things like that as well. There's no necessarily hard and fast rules with these things, as long as, again, your learner wants to engage, you're having fun, they're having fun. You can always play around with how you're doing all of this. All right, so again, if they're a nose toucher, just give them a cue to touch it that way and then follow through. Shake or paw, same thing. Have them shake and then follow through with whatever it is that you just pressed. Good boy, Bernie. And then the other 2 that are linked are more cat specific, but are also great for small learners. So if you have a small dog, they might be helpful too. Those primarily work on getting the weight shift to press. A lot of our small guys, they understand that they need to touch the button, but they don't necessarily understand that they need to press and have that weight shift to activate it. So that's, again, where target training can be really helpful. So if you also see them tapping at the side, sniffing it, staring at a button, trying to activate it, but they just can't figure it out, when in doubt, help them out. I don't want them frustrated. I don't want them giving up, walking away. Water? Bernie want water? Really? Bernie want water? So really try, even if it's something, and this is why water tends to not be a very motivating button for a lot of them, because it's not super exciting once it's pressed. You guys need water? Oh, you do need a little bit of water. Yes, water. Yes. But yeah, when in doubt, help them out, help activate the button, give them a way to feel it move under their paw or their nose or shoulder or butt, however they're sitting on, they're sitting on it, great. However they're trying to activate it, let them feel that movement. If it's a connect button, it'll light up. If it's a speak up button, they can feel it vibrate for them. Bernie, water, yay, water. So notice I say water, I press water. After getting the water, he's already off playing. It was probably an accidental press, but we always want to honor it. Even if you know it's an accident, just follow through. Accidental presses are great learning opportunities. Adora Ash? Adora upstairs. I don't know where Ash is. Yeah. Yeah. And so notice though, Bernie just lay on some abstract buttons. Since they're household members, in theory, I could go and get them or wrangle them or watch over and, point them out. But that's where the abstract concepts are tougher to reinforce, tougher to follow through. So setting yourself up for success by having the more easy to take action ones are really helpful. Katie says wet food. All right. We'll follow through in a little bit, babe. Mom, work more. All right. For y'all's sake, they're going to have to wait. And this is where once they are more experienced, you don't have to be saying yes to every single one. We still want to be reducing frustration. We still want to be honoring their communication, acknowledging it, trying to follow through as much as possible, of course. But we're only human and we have other things that we need to do sometimes, and that's okay. You can have more later. Yes. More later. Although sometimes I just follow through because it is easier. All right. So hopefully this is all helpful, making sense so far. I also want to share some resources for you all. Within the FluentPet community, which we're on right now, there are so many helpful things just under the welcome area alone. Start button teaching, lots of in-depth step-by-step information. This community as a whole has 4.5 years worth of people's experiences, probably more than that now. Best practices, such a wealth of information. FAQs, there's 41 of them. If you want to scroll through, check out different options there. Under the button Bootcamp section, this is where you can find upcoming if you are interested in attending another one, if that would be helpful. If you have a household member that you would like to attend, if you want to find a recording, you can always switch to past. Today's will be up once we finish up. And then we are in the process of scheduling the upcoming mentorship calls. They might be changing a little bit, but in the past, anyhow, we've done free ongoing calls where you're able to come to a topic that sounds interesting to you. It's hosted by one of our guides who've had success with their learners and is willing and able to teach and to help others. So just groups that can get together, chat about progress, ask questions, share your wins, struggles, whatever's relevant. We love to have you. They're some of my favorite things to do, and there's lots of fun different topics. And you can always find the recordings of these when you go click back through. So here you can find if that would be helpful for you. Resources, this is where you can find all the links that Irma has helpfully been sharing. So there's that learning center, the pod targeting tutorials. We also have a soundboard planning tool. If you're the type that wants to have an idea of where things are going, this is a great option. And under discussion, you can find different deals, events, lots of info from, again, Jennifer, one of our guides, and bootcamp instructors, different things there. Chat. Again, share your wins. Let us know. One last thing that I want to highlight under discussion, show off your soundboard. So if you're looking for inspiration for how other people have set up, here's that soundboard planning tool in action. You can see there's others with kind of the small islands of hex tiles. Sometimes it's more cockpit style. I really like to highlight this board here because even though it's tucked into the corner in a really nice space-saving design, there's enough room for Sasha's learners to get behind the board and to stand in the corner, face her, and press. Again, so many of our learners like to watch us while pressing. So highly recommend, if you are going for space saving, just making sure that they can still get fully around the board. Hi, Katie Cat. Soon, yes. All right. And in addition to those resources, we have the Let's Get Them Pressing course. This starts up again in the next few weeks. It's taught by Diane with NeuroDog training. She has Scarlett, a successful presser, and Alexis with Bunny is a guest instructor as well. There's live coaching as well as asynchronous materials. I've contributed to the cat materials, and we'd be happy to have you. It's so much fun. We have a coupon code for 25% off that does not expire that's in the chat if interested. Here's a lot of the great info that's covered. And then if you're realizing that you want to expand your board or have more buttons or hex tiles ready to go, there's a 15% off code that's good for everything at FluentPet. Oop, and I put the wrong date. Thank you. I put the wrong date on the slide, but Irma put the right date on the chat. Thank you. So sorry, y'all. Use the link in the chat, but that will get you 15% off everything at FluentPet. And then if you have any feedback for us, we're always looking to improve. We'll put that link in as well. Thank you, Irma. And then I'd love to open it up to you all. Anything I can further clarify, follow-up questions, anything I didn't cover that you're interested in, let us know. And this won't be your only opportunity, obviously, to get help. If you think of something tonight at midnight, you've got the community. You can always send us DMs. We'd love to see you on a future call. Ooh, okay. Calvin said, question from one of our viewers on Instagram. What if I started modeling play with some little soccer foam balls she loves, but now she wants to play with a feather toy? She is impressed for the first time. Will I confuse her if I use play for both? Excellent question. So I think this would fall under helping them generalize that play means both. And interestingly, I have seen both in my own cats and potentially observed in other households too, where a lot of them will use play to reference asking to go hunt for things as well, whether it's bugs or critters in the yard, things like that. So interestingly, play, if they don't have a separate hunt button, also gets used for any kind of physical activity, that stalking, hunty behavior sort of thing. So I think it would generalize well between the foam soccer balls and the feather toy. If you want, you can use, again, that general play for both, and then you can get more specific. Yes, play. And then you can get more specific. So play wand toy in this case. Katie, play wand toy, or play chase, or however you want to define it. Maybe it's catch, fetch, depending on dog or cat or their motivations and interests. Yeah, Katie cat play. So Pumpkin was an accident as she was going to play. And Calvin added Jason needs a hunt and bug button. I know I was debating adding hunt because Katie's favorite activity right now is now we've got big beetles that have just come out. And this is her first, I guess, late spring being here at the new house. And there's just so many bugs. And she wants to go out at night. And so she'll wear her little light up collar, and I'll just see a streak of her with her collar hunting bugs. And she has a blast. So yeah, maybe we do need to experiment between hunt and play. But for y'all's purposes, absolutely, I would overlap. Yeah, and this is where you can then subdivide into individual toys if that's of interest to them, or just keep it a general play. Yeah, play. I have seen where my cats have already begun to use the dog specific toy buttons like ball, and then I will get one of their little, crinkle balls or something like that. So I can go over and press play ball specifically and then give that a little throw. And now Bernie is chasing and getting to play ball. So that can always just continue their learning, keep working on their motivation and their relevant interests. And for me, even though, again, food is Katie's main motivator right now, it's allowed her to experiment and to explore around her comfort zone. What's interesting to her? She's coined a unique phrase already. I didn't have a button specifically for her freeze-dried food. Once it's soaked with water, she started calling that herself wet food water. Makes perfect sense in retrospect, but she kept pressing wet food water, and I would try to mix in water to her wet food, and she'd turn her nose up and go and try to cover it. And so I'd be like, okay, clearly that's not it. It gave me an opportunity to model the concept of different. So you want different because she was clearly telling me no with her behavior, right? We're always honoring their body language, their behavior, their vocalizations. We're using all of that in conjunction with the buttons, or sometimes the lack of button use can also be great information. If she's usually asking for food 5 or 6 times a day and she suddenly doesn't ask for food at all, I know that something is majorly going on with her. It's normal for button use to ebb and flow, but if everything else is the same and suddenly she's like, I don't even want to use my buttons, that to me would be an indicator that I need to keep a close eye on her, potentially take her to the vet. So body language, vocalizations, and buttons in conjunction, all of the ways that we're communicating with each other can just give us a wealth of information. And yeah, again, the lack of button use even too can tell us. And that's where I love to just observe, are they using one side of the board more than the other? Are they avoiding a corner, a certain color hex tile? So paying attention to different things like that. Bernie, play, loud play sound. And so you notice I just am narrating things like that all the time. If I were closer, I'd go press the hear and sound buttons. We love having our sensory exploration hex tiles as well. We like talking about different sensory experiences, what they're hearing, smelling, sometimes seeing, less so obviously with Katie, but a baby girl. All right, y'all. I don't see any other questions coming through at the moment. I'll hang out another minute in case anybody does think of anything's pressing here. But I want to thank you all so much for being here today. All of your fantastic questions. I really appreciate you all. I had a blast. Thank you for your patience with me and my scratchy throat here. Thank you, Calvin and Irma, for being here. As always, all of your help in the chat, sharing your experiences as well. All right, y'all. Everyone have a great weekend. And usually I am tempted to say something like good luck, but truly you don't need luck. You know your learner in your household best. You've got this. You know how to get us for more help if you need us. I'll be on the lookout for any updates. Can't wait to hear how things are going. Thanks so much again, y'all. Bye.